Let's move now to the founder of the PCRF, Steve Sosebee.
Is going to be not only, we're already starting to see symptoms, but the long-term consequences of the entire population experiencing firsthand and seeing firsthand violence, suffering, death, experiencing the destruction of their homes, the killing of their relatives, of their neighbors, and so on. Everybody's experiencing it in Gaza. All of these children are experiencing it firsthand, and the long-term mental health scars that it's going to leave on the entire population is going to be incredibly difficult to undo, and to really address for a long-term healthy civil society that we all want to see in Palestine and in Gaza, where they're able to function and have a sense of peace. It's going to be very, very difficult for anybody to see that happening under these conditions with the type of scars that are being created today.
That Israeli reprisals are responsible for perpetuating the Palestinian resistance is a plausible argument, but there are certainly other important considerations.
This is children's broadcasting as produced by Hamas-run television in Gaza. But don't be fooled by the colourful scenery. Instead of songs and stories, the show serves up political ideology disguised as cuddly animals. Perhaps the most famous scene from the children's show, a Mickey Mouse look-alike being beaten to death by an Israeli. It could be a case of television imitating life. After all, death and violence lurk around every corner in Gaza. But there are concerns both inside and outside Palestine about the long-term effects this will have on young minds.
The United Nations Relief Works Agency, or UNRWA, produced and provided the students material that went way beyond reading, writing, and arithmetic.
These were educational materials which were distributed to over 320,000 Palestinian children across the West Bank and Gaza. The idea that UNRWA, a UN organization, is distributing material which calls on students to defend the motherland with blood, or that glorifies terrorists and directs students to terrorists like Dalal Mughrabi, who is, in their materials, a role model for young girls, somebody who murdered 38 people, including 13 children, on a civilian bus.
يا بني لم نخلق للسعادة فأنت في نظري مشروع للشهادة وسلاحنا إسلامنا وذخيرتنا أبناؤنا فأنت يا بني مشروع للشهادة. الله أكبر الله أكبر ولله الحمد الله أكبر ولله الحمد. يابا افتح الباب شوف كيف قتلك يابا افتح ندافع عليك وقف كل وين نروح ربنا يوفق السلام. يابا يابا بسيب يابا يابا والله 10 قتلت 10 بيدي يابا يابا على ايدي اعطينا امي يما يما لا سمعت يما طول الليل 10 بيدي يما طول الليل 10 بيدي قتلت.
This whole idea of the UN Refugee Works Agency, the whole point of that has created 3 or 4 generations of people who still consider themselves refugees. No other people who have been displaced by any conflict consider themselves refugees 3, 4 generations on. And this fiction is the thing that winds up getting in the way of any peace between Israel and the Palestinians. Time to end this whole fiction.
Well, it's a terrorist organisation. Steve Sosebee joins us. Steve, good evening. You're co-founder of Heal Palestine. What can you do to heal Palestine?
Well, to start with, we have a huge number, thousands of children who've suffered permanent injuries over the past several months.
I didn't ask you that. I asked you, what can we do to heal Palestine?
Well, I was getting to answer your question,
answer
which
the
is
question.
to start providing...
Don't tell me what you think, because you don't know. None of us do. What can we do to sort this situation out? It's a very simple question.
Okay, I'm getting to that. What we're going to do is we're going to provide medical care for these kids who are being injured. We're providing food to the starving people on the ground there.
Are you completely stupid? I'm asking you a question about what can be done to heal Palestine.
I forgot this is how they...
Before we can start healing them, that's the first thing we've got to do, isn't it? Get rid of Hamas and all the nutters out there, decapitating, lynching their own people, and bring democracy, and then help the children, like you say. So,
all right,
from there,
to the question. What do we do to heal Palestine?
From day one, what's the first thing?
The first thing is to restore the health system, which has been pretty decimated. Less than 70%.
Not get rid of Hamas first. You need to get rid of Hamas first, obviously, and then do the health system.
Okay.
Do you agree with that? Or you want to keep Hamas?
Quiet now.
Well, I need
Quiet,
to know how you start it.
Gentlemen, can I say something here?
I wish you would.
I wish you would answer
Okay,
it instead
great.
of flanneling.
Stop.
Gentlemen, here's my answer. It's a beautiful Saturday afternoon. I have a family to be with. You two are clowns, and I'm not interested in this interview any longer. Take care.
Well, you are an idiot. Okay.
I don't blame Sosebee for leaving the interview. However, they did give him an opportunity to say something about Hamas, but he stalked off instead. Sosebee seems content to keep the assembly line of mangled children moving instead of actually healing Palestine. Hamas is not only indoctrinating children, they are also teaching their lessons to the rest of the world.
This whole idea of the UN Refugee Works Agency, the whole point of that has created 3 or 4 generations of people who still consider themselves refugees. No other people who have been displaced by any conflict consider themselves refugees 3, 4 generations on. And this fiction is the thing that winds up getting in the way of any peace between Israel and the Palestinians. Time to end this whole fiction.
Steve Sosebee is an intelligent man, but when it comes to the subject of Hamas, his intellect leaves him. Sosebee does not believe in international law when it comes to Israel. Sosebee supports Jewish Voice for Peace, a pro-Hamas group that is not Jewish or peaceful. Sosebee promotes Hamas mouthpiece Mads Gilbert. Steve Sosebee has no idea what the fatality count in Gaza is because nobody knows, not even the UN or Hamas. Sosebee thinks Candace Owens and Norm Finkelstein are authorities when they actually are bigots. This book's argument is basically one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, unless it's Israel, and then it's definitely terrorism. And finally, Steve Sosebee posts about the list published by the Gaza Ministry of Health. He doesn't know what he's talking about, and he looks like a bigot on social media.
They're claiming 35,000 dead in Gaza since October the 7th.
Israel has killed
over 35,000 Palestinians in Gaza.
But what if I told you this was a lie? Stick around as I'm going to uncover the shocking truth behind these numbers. We analysed those people who were supposedly identified, and what we found will shock you. Next, let's dig into the fatality list provided by the ministry. Each entry includes an ID number which is used as the primary mechanism for validating each person, but incredibly, 1,674 entries didn't even have an ID. With those entries removed, our death toll shrinks to 23,012. But that's just the beginning. We then checked if the IDs provided were in the right format. They need to be 9 digits long and only contain numbers. We found 850 IDs that didn't meet this criteria, and a further 12 that appeared more than once. It continues. IDs are split into 2 parts. The first 8 digits are an identification number, and the last digit is a check digit used to verify if the ID is valid. When we ran these IDs through a validation check, a staggering 1,522 were invalid. Removing these shrank our death toll down to 20,628. It's worth noting that even if the ID format is valid, they're still not reliable. For instance, these 2 people were already dead. 10 years ago, the ministry reported them as being killed in the 2014 war. Then miraculously, they were killed again in this war.